Yeah, great.
So, hello, welcome to this webinar on taming your inner wolves. If everyone's muted, I will ask you to unmute a little later on. We'll break for questions a couple of times during the sessions, and we'll break out into groups later if I can figure out how to break everyone into breakout rooms where we'll be able to have some in-depth conversations with each other. But for the time being, if you do have questions, if questions do come up during the session, could you type these in the chat box? And Sue, I can't see the chat box at the moment, but you might be able to. So if I can ask you to consolidate those questions, we'll get onto them at the question and answer session a little later. Okay, so this is really an introduction to Jungian personality theory, just couched a little differently. So most of the theoretical work that's been done around personality types sounds a lot like painful therapy, but it doesn't have to be. So during the last or the first lockdown, I started thinking about how I can rejig how we teach personality. And I thought, why not have some fun with it? So has everyone heard, first of all, of the Cherokee proverb of the two wolves that live within us? If you haven't, here it is. So the proverb says there are two wolves that live inside us. One is the wolf of love, or the good wolf, and is represented by all of the qualities you see on the right. So on the right, as in joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, and so on. On the left, you see the wolf of hate, or the evil wolf, represented by all of those qualities: anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, and so on. So the question that often comes up is, which one do you often see, or which one do you see the most, or which one is expressed? And the answer is the one that you feed the most. So the wolf that you feed the most gives off the qualities that you see the most. So I've always had a fascination for Native American culture ever since I was at university, and an admiration for the wolf as a spirit animal. And a lot of this came from the movie Dances with Wolves as well, which started to get me on a different path, I think. So I started to connect these ideas with our current thinking around personality type, as well as my lifelong fascination with playing role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons, which I've started playing again with a group of friends from Australia and Singapore since our last lockdown. So I'm going to take a different, I'm going to make have you on a different journey from your normal presentation. So I'm going to take you from our reality to a very different place and time. So join me. In a faraway forest long ago, there lived a wolf named Emerald. Now, Emerald was a very practical wolf. She lived in the present. She was grounded in reality. She observed everything around her in great detail. She could tell you the subtly different shades of grass in the meadow, the texture of heather and moss in the high country, and the smell of newly turned earth or the decaying leaves in the forest. She was also a keeper of lore. She remembered the generations of wolf ancestors that had gone before her and all of the stories of their packs. She relied completely on her finely tuned senses of smell, sight, hearing, touch, and taste. She also did everything with a particular order, and life for her was good in that way. Emerald was also a rather introspective wolf, not given to talking overmuch. She often kept her own counsel and opinions to herself unless asked for, or if she was particularly passionate about something. Now, Emerald's dearest companion and mate was a wolf named Sapphire. Sapphire was a rather analytical wolf. He approached the world in a logical way. He could be seen as rather tough and sometimes critical, and often rather cutting in his questions of the other wolves. He believed that the best way to solve a problem was to attack it head on, like last month when he charged the head of bison. Not always the smartest thing to do. as he soon discovered. He often looked at the principles and objective truth behind everything that happened in his world. He believed in fairness and equality and believed that all animals should be treated equally, maybe except bison. Sapphire had a different energy to Emerald. He was far more outgoing than his mate and spoke much and often without pause. Sapphire loved mingling with the other wolf packs and made sure his voice was heard. Now, Emerald and Sapphire got along splendidly, and they each had their strengths, and they complemented each other very well. Now, they also had a pair of young cubs in their pack. Ruby was the older of the two. She was a teenager and very different from her parents. She was empathetic. She wore her heart on her sleeve. All she longed for was harmony in her world and for all the animals in the forest to get along. It would be fair to describe Ruby as rather tender-hearted. This, of course, led sometimes to Ruby butting heads with her father, Sapphire. Now, the youngest cub was named Golden and had beautiful golden fur. He was forever getting lost in the woods, wandering off on his own, and creating his own little adventures. Very different from his parents, he never did things in any particular order, jumping from idea to idea in a seemingly haphazard way, and forever linking the most far-fetched ideas together to tell the most fantastical stories. Can you guess the Jungian functions each of these wolves represent? Now, as you might know, in every wolf pack, there's an order and a hierarchy to things. You have at the head of the pack the hero, or alpha, the companion, known in type theory as the auxiliary, the eternal teenager, or the tertiary, and the cub, also known as the inferior. So I've represented these symbolically on a mandala. So Emerald was the alpha wolf. She was the hero of the pack. And she was supported by her companion, Sapphire. When they worked together, actually, I got this mixed up. So, yep. So it should be the other way around. When they worked together, magic happened. There's a lot that's been written about the hero and how the hero and companion work together, and they tend to be quite complementary facets to every personality type. Now, for the cubs, Ruby, being the teenager, was mischievous, fun-loving, irresponsible, and creative. The eternal youth in her direct counterpart to her father, who was the logical one. She was also brilliant, yet volatile, the ultimate emo teenager. And then you have Golden, the little cub, the least understood member of the pack, and a counterpoint to her mother, the hero. So Golden was the least developed of the pack and needed the most protection, especially since he wandered off a lot. Now, Golden was also closest to the hidden realm of the shadow forest, where the shadow wolves dwelled. He sometimes dwelled partly in that shadow forest himself. He was in fact seen as a guardian and a gatekeeper to the threshold between the evergreen forest and the shadow realm. Now, in this magical realm of wolves, there are only 4 types of wolf: the practical emerald, the analytical sapphire, the empathetic ruby, and the visionary golden. But how they make up the pack can be very different. There are, in fact, 8 different ways in which wolf packs can combine, with different alphas, companions, teenagers, and cubs. In the neighboring meadow, for example, there was a golden alpha, ruby companion, sapphire teenager, and emerald cub. If you understand type theory, you might have guessed by now that this is simply a way to describe type dynamics and the multi-dimensional way in which the 4 wolves or mental functions of type work together within our psyche to describe the different personality patterns. Each dominant function corresponds to that alpha or hero. You can see in this diagram your traditional 4-letter types embedded in each of the wolves. Thinkers, for example, have the sapphire wolf as the hero, feelers, the ruby wolf, intuitives, the golden wolf, and senses the emerald wolf. There is, of course, the added dimension of energy, where it originates and how it's expressed, either through introspection, where the energy comes from within, and the outgoing orientation or extroversion, where the energy comes from the outside world. So 8 possible alphas, each with their own distinctive gifts. To give you an example of some of these distinct gifts, let's look at the outgoing analyst or extroverted thinker. So an outgoing analyst, an extroverted thinker, some of the things that they do well: they codify a tribe's shared vision. They lead a group's decision-making in a logical way. They're objective, they're decisive, they're reliable. They have clear-cut decision-making. They build hierarchical, rule-based systems. So your typical characteristics for your extroverted thinker. To reiterate the idea of the wolf pack in type dynamics, the alpha is our hero wolf. And because we have such absolute confidence in the hero, we also give it absolute sovereignty. We make it dominant in the hierarchy of the wolf pack and make it the absolute leader of the pack. So it leads, it creates the trail, it directs the course of your life, and it has absolute confidence in its direction, its action, its position. And it has absolute certainty that the rest of the pack will follow. It believes it can take on any challenge the world throws at it. But this supreme confidence is also its greatest weakness. The hero believes that its chosen way can take care of anything. Its way is the best way, and often the only way.
That's like an NT to me.
So we might recognize this as a demonstration of Einstein's definition of insanity. Doubling down on solving a problem with the same kind of thinking that hasn't actually been working. When your only tool is a hammer, every problem is treated like a nail. So imagine the analytical wolf using its supreme logic to solve every problem it comes across. What could go wrong, it says. He or she comes across a problem, applies logic, and it doesn't work. Well, that didn't work. Maybe it needs more logic, which creates an even bigger problem. Any extroverted T's thinking about this? To give you an example, I was once exploring working with a government organization in Singapore to do some team development. I asked one of the directors, so how do you motivate your people? And he said, well, we shout at them. So I asked, well, how's that working for you? And he said, well, it's not. So I said, well, what do you do instead? He said, we shout louder. And I'm not joking about this. So we actually didn't get to work with them later on. So we can see that relying on the hero can get us into trouble if we don't temper it with the rest of the pack, which is why the rest of the pack is there. So to counterbalance the energy of the hero, what do the other wolves offer? So the companion, for example, provides the guiding balance of the pack. It supports, it nourishes it, it protects it. It's the pack's navigator to its alpha driver. So if the hero is the general, then the companion is its 2IC. When the hero is challenged and unable to solve a problem, the companion may offer an answer. So your companion is your backup solution. The blind spot for the companion is that it simply isn't as developed and as strong as the hero. So imagine your typical hero and companion in Batman and Robin. So if you think of Batman and Robin as a typical hero and sidekick, Robin isn't as strong as Batman. So if you throw Robin out on his own against a powerful opponent, he's not likely to succeed. So the best outcome would be the team up of both Batman and Robin, hero and companion. So these are the two wolves we typically rely on to get us through life, but we often forget the other 6 wolves. So you didn't hear wrong. I will be talking about the other 6. So imagine if we could tap into the wisdom that each of these wolves could give us. So the other two which sit within our wolf pack, the eternal youth or the teenager, and the cub or the inferior. Incidentally, Jung called the cub the animus because it was the polar opposite to the hero. These two are the less developed aspects of our inner wolf pack. Although in discussing type dynamics, they're often described as being part of the unconscious, I believe they reside still within our consciousness, but are simply not as developed. What if we could develop these two, not to the extent that they replace your hero and companion, but enough that you could draw on their wisdom when you needed to? So what about the remaining four wolves beyond the gateway of our conscious? So sitting within our unconscious in that realm we call the shadow are the four mirror images to our conscious wolves. So these are the mirrors of the orientation of our conscious wolves. So Jung gave them the somewhat ominous names of the senex, which is the mirror of your dominant or alpha, the witch, the trickster, and the demon. So he saw these wolves as part of our darker, less differentiated self, prone to be morally ambiguous in their alignment and temperament, like the polarity of light versus darkness, the Jedi versus the Sith, or if you know Star Trek, the mirror universe. So I only want to spend a brief amount of time describing each of these because this really deserves its own session. So the senex is the mirror image of your hero in terms of its orientation. So if your hero is introspective, the senex is outgoing. Similarly, the witch, the trickster, and the demon are mirrors of the companion, the teenager, and the cub. So these four are likely the least developed wolves of your pack. I believe Jung also described the eighth wolf, the demon, either as your deepest source of creativity or your deepest well of evil. So it seems logical that you want to tame these inner wolves rather than letting them run rampant within you. And that's why all of this matters. So it's all well and good having all of these wolves running around inside us, or worrying, depending on how you look at it. But the opportunity that it gives us is self-awareness. So self-awareness being the first step to self-development, so that we can start to improve the way we relate to ourselves and the people around us, to understand how we learn, how we lead, how we deal with change, how we deal with stress. So it's our first step to discovering what our true trail is in life and how we can become a whole human being. So how do we start on that trail to becoming a true human being? How do we start on that hero's journey? So as a start, it's important to understand our hero wolf, our alpha as an anchor. Understand how your hero interacts with the world. And also knowing your hero's blind spots gives you a starting point for development. Now, here are the 8 heroes represented symbolically in this chart, and you'll also have a link to downloading a copy of this for the next exercise that we're going to do. So, on the lower hemisphere, you have your perceiving heroes, so everyone whose type ends in P. On the upper hemisphere, you have your judging heroes. On the right, you have your introspective heroes. And on the left, your outgoing heroes. And if you didn't already know your hero, this chart overlays your MBTI type with your hero. So have a look at what your hero might be, if you don't already know it, and just make a note of it. So I've given each of these heroes particular names as well, just to get away from those 4 letters that we typically use. So the commander, the unifier, the explorer, the scout, the analyst, the healer, the mystic, and the traditionalist. And I've done a chart for my type. So I'm an INTP, an introspective analyst. Here are my 8 wolves represented in this chart, with the four conscious wolves and the 4 shadow wolves. So questions before we move on to an activity.
like what we do, sorry, Brian, like what we do with the Myers-Briggs as well, despite it being in boxes and how we discussed years ago that it should be in bubbles. Is it also important that we don't box people to these from like a title point of view as well?
It's important to understand that all 8 are within us. So we're not really boxing ourselves into any particular space. We're trying to understand that they're all there. So we have access to all the 8 types or all the 8 functions.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
So if you've identified your hero, what I'd like you to do first is create an avatar for your hero. In your head or on a piece of paper, think about what this hero looks like. So it can be a wolf. You can represent it symbolically, like I have as a wolf. Or it can be something that you identify with, or someone that you identify with. So it could be a famous character, it could be a spirit animal, it could be a heroic figure. So if you have the introspective analyst Sapphire Wolf, for example, as your hero, like I do, think about what character might represent that. So make it fun, make it adventurous, make it weird, make it creative. I'll show you the one that I've done for mine. So that's my hero, contemplative wizard.
Oh, love it.
So I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. So if you could create your hero. Once you've done your hero, can I ask you to put it in the chat box? You don't have to put a picture of it in, but just sort of a very brief description of your hero. Einstein in a spaceship. Yep.
I knew it would be worth waiting for.
Well, Margaret, you've got to put together a picture of that. That would be awesome to see. Okay, so if everyone's created an avatar, your next task is to write down your hero's strengths and blind spots. So like I've done here, so strengths on one side, blind spots on the other, if you could. So if everyone's gotten their strengths and blind spots, what I'd like you to do is to think about a goal that you have now. So a goal, an aspiration that you'd like to turn into a goal, a problem that you're grappling with, a difficult person that you're dealing with, a task at work you're trying to solve, any one of those. And think about how your hero can help you with this. So what are some of the things that your hero can do specifically to help you with this goal? Actually ask your hero for some advice on dealing with this. Do it as though you're actually speaking to that hero. What advice would your hero give you? So treat your hero like a real entity and ask that entity for some advice. And as soon as you've done that, what I'm going to do is break you into breakout rooms and have you discuss this. So it can be a goal, it can be an aspiration that you'd like to turn into a goal, it could be a problem that you're grappling with, it could be a difficult person that you're dealing with, it could be a task that you're trying to solve at work, it could be any one of those things. So how can your hero actually help with this?
I kind of need more information on the hero's traits, Brian, in order to do this. I'm not quite sure. I'm not competent. I don't feel competent enough to speak to my hero as yet.
So who's your hero?
The golden cub, golden wolf cub.
Okay, so the golden wolf cub. So that would be the intuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be the outgoing or the introspective intuitive?
Outgoing.
So that would be the explorer then. So
Mm-hmm.
how would you explorer? I mean, what are the positive aspects of your explorer that help you day to day in solving problems?
Okay. Oh,
How do you actually approach a problem as an extroverted intuitive?
okay. Thank you.
I can give you a clue because I'm an INTJ.
Great, I'll follow you.
Hopefully it's the same hero. That's a mystic. You are a mystic.
Yes, I thought that might be.
Is your dominant one. So yes.
Yeah, I am too, but not an INTJ, interestingly enough.
So same dominant function, INFJ.
Yeah, sort of the intuitive, introverted intuition.
Yeah, that's it.
And with I know for myself, my then extroverted thinking is my next sort of secondary function.
Yeah, and I've got feeling.
Extroverted feeling.
That would be the unifier.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Whereas I have the dominant extroverted intuition and the introverted feeling as my auxiliary.
So the explorer and the healer then.
Yes, yeah, great.
My girlfriend's an ENFP.
Oh, she must be wonderful.
Yeah, she is. Always life of the party. Everyone loves her.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So what are we looking at in this process now?
So you're looking at your goal, whatever goal it might be, and how your hero actually helps you. What advice your hero might give you for dealing with this goal, this problem, this issue, this person?
Okay, I've got a doozy for my group because I'm in the process of selling my house, which is a heartbreak. I don't want to do it, but I am, circumstances of making it a wise decision. And so I'm looking at how my hero will help, what the explorer would say would be, imagine what else you can do once that's resolved. Imagine the freedom once it's sorted. And the other side of that is other people will help. You don't have to do it all alone. And so those were the two clear sort of concepts that came from the idea of an explorer answering that question.
So it's all about exploring the options and the possibilities, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you, Brian.
Brilliant.
Yes. Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Got any questions there? Go play. A goal.
There's Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hello.
Check in on us.
Yeah.
I'm jumping from room to room.
Check.
Brian asked us to kind of see our hero as an entity and be actually talking to the entity. So I was very obedient and I did that. And when I did, my hero came back with, I'm talking about getting my own health and healing as my goal, Brian, was believe in myself. So there you go.
So that's what your explorer told you to do.
Well, sort of. I was obedient too, and once I decided that I was probably doing the right thing, Brian, I wasn't 100% sure, but then I said, trust yourself, Louise. So I said to my unifier, how could you help me? And I actually wrote that down. How could you help me? And then I just started thinking about, my EF. So my EF is about, connecting with people and, appreciating people and creating harmony and stuff like that. And it's to do, Brian, it's to do with growing my business was my goal. And I thought, okay, so I just have to keep going on connecting with people, but bring some in there in an imaginative way. And then I went, what could that be? And I came to a dead end. But I just have that thought.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Your hero may not actually have the answer. So that's why in the next activity, we go to the other heroes.
Yes.
So, you know, relying only on your alpha or your hero isn't always enough.
Yeah, that's right.
But a lot of people only go to their dominant. They only go to their main hero because that's the only one that they trust. So the next exercise, I'll ask you to choose another hero to actually draw wisdom from.
Oh, you'll have to show us the charts again.
Yep. We'll come back to the chart. There's a copy of the chart in the chat box, which you can download.
Oh, okay.
I think it's right at the start of the chat.
I'm just going through the chat right now.
I'll just pop into another room.
Okay.
Miriam, an ISTJ husband.
There we go.
In terms of goals, along with Brian and now Sue, I would know Sue's probably a slightly different track at the moment, but doing positive intelligence certification, coach certification, and I think one of the goals that is just bubbling up is actually to have more opportunities to run workshops and do public speaking on that. And I was thinking, that was the thing that bubbled to my head, the first thing, and it's not even it's just there in the background, but it came forward first, so that's why I wrote it down. And I think my explorer hero can help me, and I mean I find it really difficult naming the heroes because I'm not a great movie buff or not a great TV watcher, and if I do, I forget who they are.
Hero.
I'm really, Barry's my hero, so why should I look at TV?
I've got to say.
Excuse me, Brian, stop laughing like that. It's serious. So it's sort of like, so I do, if anybody's got some sort of more exciting sort of heroes that, or animals or something that I can connect to a bit better. Yeah, I've got Captain Cook, and I looked up, I asked Siri for ideas for animals that to exploring, and that's where I came up with the monarch.
It's always the otter, Claire. The otter is the usual.
What's that?
The otter is the usual extroverted, intuitive in the animal kingdom.
What was that, sorry?
The otter.
Otter.
Oh, the otter. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They run away and get themselves into trouble, don't they?
All the time.
You know what I mean?
I think
funny that.
But it's just that seeing the options and possibilities and going for them really, and so it is where I can see my strengths. Being able to do that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying though, Claire, also is having Barry next to you. What you really need is the ultimate reality checker and someone who can eliminate some of the options. So
what I call that at the moment, doing the positive intelligence course, I call that stickler. Monica from Friends.
Yeah.
Good example.
So you need to find a reality checker as a sounding board, Miriam, maybe.
Yeah, true.
Would you like to borrow Barry sometime?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the Avatar thing, I struggled with that as well, Claire, and I do watch a lot of movies and things. But, what I did was I just kind of thought of an animal that I resonated with or liked, and then went that way. And I'm sure that both you and I will get ideas over the next couple of.
What did you come up with, Miriam?
Well, the first one I came up with was the female lion cub, because I've often through my life identified with a female, more of a lone lioness type of thing, and that quite an explorer, and it was something, but also a devil's advocate. So is a completely different one because that's what I tend to be. So but I haven't really come up with anything yet, but I just kind of thought it through that way, Claire. You know what?
No, that's good.
Oh, good.
The one that came first to mind was a dolphin.
Lovely.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Jeremy, how about you?
Oh, okay. So I'm in ENFJ. Strengths, I think similar. Being charismatic, people person, gets things done, sees the big picture, forgives easily. Weaknesses is try to please everyone, gets easily hurt, irritates others, being too pushy sometimes. Can't do details as well, right? And my goal is really reach the stage in my life that I plan for the next stage. My son is hitting university, hopefully, and then, well, he's in university, but he's gonna finish university in a couple of years. So I'm planning the next stage and what do I do with my life. I only have one son, and yeah, that's about it, I guess. Yeah.
So how can your dominant function? How can that help you?
Well, okay, my character is. I mean, I've done Myers-Briggs with Brian for many years, and ENFJs are known to be motivational speakers, priests, doing stuff like that. So my character is an evangelical battle priest, right? And I guess you just knock me on the head and say, look, go and start planning, right? And stop daydreaming and stop. I think I just need to organize my thoughts properly and see what the priorities are, and slowly get things in place. I have time, and I guess just having the confidence to look, further in the future to see what I want to do.
Yeah. I guess if your hero is going to be satisfied, then you need to be outwardly caring towards other people.
Yep.
So it's trying to think of something that's going to include that.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, well, I'm going to bring my wife along with me, right, for the retirement. So definitely we'll try and get her engaged and see what she wants to do. She's a INFP.
Is she?
As well. I think INTP or INFP. Yeah, close to yours, right? Yeah, but yeah, so, it's opposite, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
One of the insights that someone in one of the other groups had was they actually couldn't get an answer from their hero because the problem was such that their particular dominant function couldn't actually solve it. So the wisdom there is going to one of the other heroes. So if your dominant can't do it, and your dominant may not actually have the answer in some situations, try one of the other 7.
Yeah, makes sense.
Usually, especially the second one.
Usually the second one.
Function.
But then are you missing out on the wisdom that the other 6 could give you as well?
Barry, how about you?
Cool. Yeah. Well, my hero
on the ground to pull us back down.
Yes.
But at the same time, if they don't have us that close to the sun, they may never get off the ground.
I have a wonderful picture of a tarot card that someone gave me. And on my 80th birthday, I decided I would be the fool. And the picture is of the fool, and he's got a pack in his back and a burnt flower in his hand, and he's just going to take a step off the cliff. And there's a little yapping dog at his heels, and I reckon that's my 4th function, saying, "Watch where you're going, you dumb cluck."
I love it.
And I didn't even notice the dog for a while, but I made myself look at that in terms of type, and I think it's absolutely great.
It's fantastic.
Because that 4th function tends to bring me down to earth. And tell me I'm going too close to the sun.
Yeah.
burn.
That's an important insight, Margaret. And someone else had the same insight in one of the other groups, in that they may not necessarily get the answer from their hero, from their alpha, from their dominant. And quite often it's one of the others that have the answer or part of the answer.
I definitely, now at my age, I'm definitely, or in the stage of life, I'm definitely valuing all those 8. If I don't, I'm very unbalanced. And if I start looking at the ones that I least prefer, I'm learning a lot more. So I keep thinking of Jung saying, I like my compass for life, you know. That then he meant his 8 functions. I think you need to develop the skills around all your functions. You still have.
Oh, nice.
And I start to see the benefit of the sensing, introverted, extroverted, introverted sensing is my 4th function. So you could teach me a lot, Jill.
Here we go.
I guess my son-in-law could by the same token. Oh!
And Judy, did your explorer give you some good advice?
Well, I think it did. I think it was that, I did have a disagreement with my daughter, who's an ESFJ, and I'm thinking, that I could have been perhaps a better listener, even though I was thinking I was trying to persuade her to my way of thinking, which was to do with our grandson, actually. It was interesting. So it was interesting how she responded, and I guess my advice was that I might have overlooked some details.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Something that I learned that's been a real big wake-up call for me, and it's been through coaching. 2 things, actually. One is that you can't spell listen without the word silent. And the other one is that we, as people, should be curious and not critical. And I learned this in a business setting, but it goes the same for everything. Like, my wife and I are religious, and despite that, a lot of people that are or aren't religious are very judgmental for whatever reasons. So instead of doing that, like, why aren't we curious to why people are like this? Which is why I love the likes of Myers-Briggs and MBTI, and how we go down to we split it in so many different ways. Like, how and why are we wired this way? And despite, I'm only 30, but I think if I compare myself to a lot of other 30-year-olds, I'm far further along that scale. And that's just because of the amount of exposure that I've had. And yeah, I think learning that being curious and not critical has helped me learn to listen better.
That's wonderful.
Lovely.
Curious rather than critical. I think that
I love it.
Is going to the perception, which is your companion, isn't it?
Yeah.
And your hero is a really, really evaluating, judging type of function.
Yeah.
And you do it. You can't help it. You breathe it all the time.
Exactly. That's how we are naturally, right? And that's why I love what you said, Margaret. Like, my hero, as I was writing down the positives and the blind spots, all the strengths and blind spots, I was like, this is just a super version of me, the version I want to be in 10 years. I don't need that. I don't. Black and white. I need somebody or something else that doesn't think the same way I do, because they don't have my blind spots. Like, that's it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I need somebody else's perception, because I can't see that. Yeah. So I love what you said.
So Tate, then the question is, how, if you didn't find anyone else to give you that insight, how could you find it within yourself? Because it's there. It's within you.
Yeah.
How do you pull that out of yourself?
I've been doing it recently, actually. I do a lot of mind mapping now. Or have been for a little while now. But what I do is, I've just bought a whiteboard today, because I usually use the ones at work. I take everything that's in here and throw it onto a whiteboard. And I mean everything. It could be family, it could be work, it could be looking for work, it could be, I don't know, anything. Like my big, hairy, audacious goal, my BHAG. it could be anything. So what I've started doing, Brian, is I know that I'm comfortable with thinking at a higher, or not a higher, but a big level and a big picture that's so close to the sun piece. What I know within myself I need to get better at is actually breaking that down into detail. And the coping mechanism, I suppose, or the learned behavior for me to do that effectively is to actually throw it onto something visually so I can actually see it. Otherwise, it just goes in circles in my head, or I think I can solve it, but it doesn't work. So yeah, there's a few things like that. Like that one's definitely worked.
So you're actually using the sense thing. You're using your eyes to do that seeing, to visualize it actually, and put it down in a concrete form.
And then it's in a traditional J way, structuring it.
But but mind mapping isn't structuring it; it's mind mapping it. It's
Oh, not originally, yeah. You're right, 100%. It's about just throwing everything on here onto, in this case, a whiteboard.
I love doing that. It's just
same. I love it. If I could do it every day, I would. Which is why I've started doing like little bits of like business development, because I'm just like, oh, the opportunities for this particular website, bang! I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. And then I'll organize it like 3 steps later. So it seems to work.
That was a great exercise, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just felt wonderful talking to Einstein in the spaceship.
Oh, marvelous.
That's such a great avatar, that one.
It is a great avatar.
Where did it take you, Margaret?
He said, "What's your problem?" Which is what to do in my super old age. And he said, "No problem. Just get on with what you want to do." He said, "People will call you mad."
He sounds cool.
Well, Einstein was pretty cool, and his wife did everything for him, and I have a husband who gets my meals for me, so
you're all set.
That makes you Einstein, doesn't it, Margaret? Modern day Margaret Einstein, there you go.
Okay, guys, so that was the advice that I wanted you to get from your hero. Now, what I'd like you to do next is pick another hero from the remaining 7. So how can this hero help you with the issue? So if you want a real challenge, you can pick your cub. If you want an even bigger challenge, pick one of your shadow wolves and do exactly the same thing with this hero. So break up into breakout rooms again. Make sure that you're drawing from a completely different hero. And if you really want to test yourself, get one that you've never actually engaged with before.
Can you put up the picture of?
Yep, I will do that.
So when you're talking about our shadow heroes, are you talking about our 5, 6, 7, and 8? Or
That's right. It's your 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Oh, here you go. Brian can join us.
Yep. So you only had 2, and well, you've got 4 now.
No, we got 3. We've got 3 people.
Yes. Yeah.
What are we doing? Oh no,
So-
the other person.
You're looking for a different hero now.
Oh my god.
So this is typically more difficult.
Just quickly, Brian, sorry. Oh, you froze.
Are we asking the same question?
The same question, different hero.
The healer.
Well, if I'm supposed to be a unifier, well, we're asking the unifier. That's putting people together, whereas I'm an introvert. Well, I don't want to be together, actually, really.
So that's why it would be harder for you, wouldn't it?
Yes. And I'm looking at my Senex, which is the commander, and he would just say to me, "Just do it." And you don't like that. That's right. I don't.
Jill, have you done the Phiro at all?
The what?
The Phiro B.
No.
So that looks at your interpersonal needs. So one of those needs is the need for control, and I would guess that you have a very low need for control. as in controlling others.
Oh yes, yes. Don't worry about it at all. Except if I do happen to be the boss. This year, I put myself in the position of being in charge of a committee, which, you know, look at the grey hairs. I don't do that very often.
But you're doing it all right, aren't you?
I am, yes, but I do
Yes.
it just by making sure that everybody has their say. A democratic way, rather than directive way. But looking for the commander, he would just say, just get out there and just do it.
So how much resistance would you put in that command from the commander, though?
Oh, I would say, oh my, you didn't hear my question, which was spend money on maintenance now or just leave it till 20 years time when the house is falling down. So I still have to say, okay, but which bits? Right, and in that instance, my mystery book reader gave me the best advice, which was look for those clues and evaluate whether they're important or not.
Just look for them, don't think about them.
Yeah.
Which is the combined effort of the two people.
Yeah. Oh well, you to tame the commander, you do one first, and then you say, okay, the important ones, just do it. Put him in his place, but use him.
What are your ones, Tate? Are you a new one?
Yeah, let's look at them now. So I was the unifier natural. That's where my hero sat. And what was it, Brian? It's just mirror image. So if I look down at the healer,
The Senex would be the healer.
yeah, which I did think about because it's interesting, right? Because you don't think with your normal thoughts. That person would probably just spend time to themselves and start building it as opposed to relying on others or building things with others. And that's the P as well. Like they're not planning. It's just sit down and start it. Just do it. And I think, yeah, that's kind of what I took away from this piece. And then similar to yours as well, actually, Brian, when you mentioned that piece before, I've worked for a lot of commanders. A lot of commanders, and they're good at what they do. However, what I've found is, and I think it was similar to what you mentioned before, Joe, it's like, just do it. So, well, actually, that's going to be a short-term gain and not a long-term gain. Like you're only thinking about the immediate gain. And that's been a very big barrier for me working with commanders.
Yep. So are you thinking 5 years into the future, or are you just thinking the next quarter?
Or even 12 months.
Yep.
They're like, we need money now. I'm like, that's great, but we're still building ourselves. We need to make sure we're going to survive in 6 months. So, yeah. Yep, definitely something that I've learned in the last 6 months. A lot.
I found that true with ENTJs. So, your ultimate commanders, their biggest blind spot is relinquishing that control. So they don't want to be.
What was the last bit, Brian? Sorry, you cut out.
Oh, they don't want to relinquish control.
Brian.
Is it still there? Am I here?
Okay, yeah. So, you're good now. You're good now.
So they don't want to relinquish control. They want to be in control of everything, and I think that's their biggest blind spot.
Yeah, which would make sense. Like just thinking about the people that I know that definitely wear that or are that wolf. Yeah. How does this relate? I was thinking, Brian, how does this relate the shadow wolves to being in the grip? Is it effectively what we're doing is we're trying to tame and use those areas we don't necessarily always use?
So typically
to get the better out of them.
Yeah. So you're I mean, if you're looking at stress, what you want to avoid are the stress triggers, or what you want to get to know are the stress triggers, so you can avoid moving deeper into those shadow behaviors. And when you move into the shadow world, typically those stress reactions are going to be far worse than what you get out of your inferior.
Aggravated. Okay.
So you're basically what you're doing under stress is awakening those shadow wolves, and they're just running rampant, and you have absolutely no control over them.
Yeah, they've got their own energy. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that connected some dots for me. Yep, that makes way more sense. Cool.
And my my demon, which is the healer, just it goes into it goes into a victim mode, but it also goes into almost murderous plotting.
Yeah, I see you as a murderous plotter, Brian.
Or is it just that?
Internally or externally?
Is that just the INTP, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, that's
The ultimate revenge taker.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I wouldn't
but it's so
actually
good that you
do
can
it.
understand this. Well, and I'm happy for you on that.
No, I'm still not in jail or anything. So.
Yeah.
But you can start to see how, those shadows actually come out in a lot of people, and, they absolutely do lose control, and they are in jail.
Oh, yeah. Is there also
so really with this 8, you can have a different avatar for each one, and you get a different answer from each one.
Yep.
Yeah,
which might help you or not.
You should get a different answer.
Yeah. Or different aspects of the answer.
So the next thing that, this will be the last exercise, but the next thing that we do is create an avatar for each of those wolves, and then you have an advisory council.
That's cool.
How many people are left?
I don't know. I'm gonna have a look at the other rooms and see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it'd be good to get a copy of that, Sue.
I'll put my feeling hat on.
Yeah.
Actually, Brian, Sue's just going through. She's got an amazing, a really good bunch of questions for each of those shadow.
Oh, okay.
For each of the functions. Yeah. So just sort of, questions to ask ourselves from each of the 8 Jungian functions. So it's just been helpful. We've just been looking at the trickster for each of us and what we're supposed to listen to, which in fact we usually ignore because the trickster does that. It just sort of disappears and doesn't make an appearance until it's way too late, or comes, bundling in when we don't really want it. Yeah.
I've actually got a list of 10 guiding questions for each of the wolves. I just didn't have time to put it in for this session.
Oh, that would be great.
So
Are you able
I'll
to give it to us as a handout?
I'll try and do that. I will try and do that.
Thank you.
Breaking up.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
And for any ISTJs, other ISTJs out there that are trying to deal with the extroverted feeling trickster, there's a really good feelings wheel on, you can download off the net that helps people identify and name feelings.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
It's really good.
That would be useful.
Is it called the feelings wheel?
Yeah, it's called the feelings wheel, but the best one that I've come across is from.
Oh, she's muted herself. You're mute, Claire.
You're muted.
That could be a healthy thing that I've muted myself.
It could be.
Oh, sorry.
It could have been me that muted you, Claire.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Sue. Go get your umbrella, Sue. I think it comes from the domestic violence. It's under the thing. But I think if you look on feelings wheel, anyway, you should get it. And there's also one on the needs wheel of needs. They're really good.
That would be really handy for an emotional intelligence workshop. For
Oh
people
yeah,
who are,
absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it looks like that.
one of the things I would,
Wow.
wow,
my gosh,
that's a lot of feelings.
You've got to work through,
It's got
Barry.
your core
Wow.
feelings in the front and the middle,
Yeah.
and then it goes further
It's-
out, to giving them more, to increase the number.
Oh, heavens.
More words. There's another good tool that I've got for any of you that are coaches or if you're counsellors for this is through Positive Intelligence, the Langley group. They've got, that you can actually, people can actually of cards that they can sort it out. But this is good.
Yeah.
And
Got those cards.
got this on her. She's got it on their toilet wall so that their kids can actually identify their feelings, which is really good because the kids are like even their 4-year-old. He can't read, but he knows. Yeah, and their 6-year-old can read, and she can go and this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, very cool.
Nice.
I don't know if I've ever had that many feelings.
Let's open up a whole new world to you. All you're thinking,
I'm gonna go straight to the wheel.
One of the exercises I do on EQ workshops is to get people to write down as many feelings as they can think of. And some people really struggle with that. They go, they get about 8 or 9 and then they're stuck.
8 or 9. Barry used to only have 1. It was Brian. And then he developed that he was hungry. And so I had to sort of say, actually, I'm talking about emotional feelings, not physical feelings.
That's a sense.
Thank God they've got emojis now, Barry.
Yeah. That's right.
Heaps of those.
Yeah.
Emojis.
Oh, emojis, yeah.
At least you can say, where's my dinner? Happy face emoji. Yeah.
I had an ISTJ on a session, and I asked the whole group, write down the things that make you happy, and I broke them up into their dominant functions. And I said to her, so tell me what makes you happy. And she said, I don't understand the question. Because to her, happiness was, no, she couldn't actually articulate happy as a feeling. She could identify happy as, the feel of snow under her feet or, the touch of her husband's hand on her cheek. They're all sensing things, but not the actual feeling of happiness.
Emotion.
Of the emotion, yeah.
Oh. Interesting.
I also wonder about with the saboteurs, whether the saboteurs would correspond with the shadow self as well. See if any of the saboteurs show up in your shadow.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Some of them do.
Actually, there's just been a private chat between Debbie Perdue and I, because she's doing the Pioneer Coaching course as well, and asking that question. She was just saying that, but Jane, that's what Jane and Homer looking at. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah.
Very good.
Okay, I'm going to pop. Are you guys pretty much done with this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just pop into the others and then see what they're doing, and we'll. So, did you find that creating, asking another hero for advice typically harder?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next step with this would be to ask each and every hero, create an avatar for each hero. And then once you've done that, what you have is an advisory council. So every time you have a problem, what you're doing is consulting each of the heroes in your advisory council, especially when you've got big decisions to make. So if you want the decision to be more conscious, more skilled, eventually you'll have to develop that advisory council. So they're never going to be as skilled as or confident as your main hero, but in the long run, it does make you more flexible and it makes your decision-making process a lot better. So I'll just show you my advisory council.
Not going to mess with you anytime soon.
No,
that advisory council.
I deliberately made my demon as evil looking as possible.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian.
You can
Wow.
make
My
a
dominant
Marvel,
market.
a Marvel franchise movie out of that there, and run for it.
Yeah.
I think, Brian, if you can do the cast for each of the types, like which is the hero, the demon, the trickster, the witch, whatever, that would be really useful.
I will. Yep.
Starting with ENTP, she says, winking.
Head bias there, Mum.
I'll do all 8, and I'll send them out.
That would be fantastic. It'd be really fascinating.
Wow.
Ham is the
So the next step obviously would be to develop all the wolves in your pack. So I'm starting a group coaching program where we spend time working on each of your inner wolves at your own pace. So for each of the 8 heroes, we create actions that you can carry out. So I'm thinking of creating cards where you have simple exercises, then moving on to more complex ones to develop each of those heroes. So I'm working with a coachee now, and he's an ESFP, and we're trying to develop his mystic. So his introverted intuition. So as an extroverted sensor, we're moving directly to his introverted intuition. He's finding it incredibly hard.
Yeah.
You could almost do this as a full day workshop where you help each other.
I don't think even a full day workshop would be enough. It would have to be a coaching relationship, really.
Everybody would have a different range of 8 characters, wouldn't they?
They would, yeah.
So your 8 isn't going to be my 8, just in a different order.
Yeah.
It's going to be completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So that's what I'll do, and I'll send it out to everyone.
Yeah, I'm interested. What brought your client to choose that particular shadow figure to focus on?
He's a CEO of a construction consultancy, and his strategic planning is what he's weakest at. So that's what he wanted to develop, but he can't actually project himself into the future. He just doesn't have the energy to do it.
Yeah.
I completely understand.
So he's really at a loss because now they're in lockdown, and being an ESFP, he still goes into the office, but there's really nothing for him to do.
Oh.
And I could imagine if he's an ESFP, that sort of SP temperament, that improviser temperament, would almost love this sort of stuff as a game.
Yeah.
Yes.
A good way to do it with an SP.
Well, that's my next thing, is developing this into a game, integrating it into Dungeons and Dragons or something like that.
Yes.
Until you said that last sentence, I thought I'd be loved to play a game like this, but I don't know if I'd probably get my head around Dungeons and Dragons.
Go on.
Well, we play every Sunday night.
Okay, you have your group and you.
I'm gonna run it past my group, actually. Jeremy's in my group, so we're gonna try it. So your challenge before you leave is, what's one step you could take today to develop one of your 7 other heroes?
Ask you to send them through the you can't borrow mine, people.
Well, the first thing is actually to identify who they are.
Yep.
Yeah, I think identification is important.
Yeah. So once you've identified them, then start to see which one you want to develop in particular, and just go ahead. So I found several. I mean, my teenager, my introverted sensing, is the one that I've probably developed most in the last 5 years running my own business, because I've really had to get into detail and lists and plans and and short-term thinking as well. So that's one I've started to really get around. And my extroverted feeling, which is my inferior gets triggered by, in a safe way, by watching animal movies. So when I want to let my feelings out, I watch a dog movie.
Must it be a sad dog movie, I guess?
It's always sad dog movies because the dog
okay.
always dies in it.
That's true. That's true.
But I was watching a video on Facebook the other day, and it was about this lab and his little cat brother. So they grew up together, and they were great friends. And the music that was playing along with the video just made me start bawling, and I couldn't stop. And I'm going, "What the hell's going on?" And that was my extroverted F.
Very good.
Excellent.
I think though sometimes, Brian, when your dominant function, the needs of your dominant function aren't being met, then your energy for the others is much less.
Yeah. So I think for most of my career, I think I've managed to meet the needs for my dominant function. Sometimes I rely too much on my dominant function. Right. So that's your challenge. So for more information, get in touch with me. Or if you want to book a 20-minute call to discuss any of this in more detail, that's the Calendly link. And so how do I send out these bits to everyone then?
I don't know how we send them out to just the people who have we got a log of who's
I do actually. I do have a log because everyone who registered showed up in an email, so I can compile an email list. Yep. I'll compile an email list, and if you want the slides as well.
Would you have their codes?
Sorry.
If you're going to send out all of them to everybody, then I don't think that's sure, unless you wanting to send them out specific to their code, then you might need to know the people's types.
Well,
Work. That would be a lot of work.
it's only 8. It's only 8 sheets, and it's just manipulating it on Adobe Illustrator. So it won't take that long.
Yeah, and actually, sorry, second guessing myself. If you could see if I was to receive just not my own, but all the different types, then that would be useful as well.
Because you'd want it for someone else as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you so much for doing all this.
Thank you.
It's been a really enjoyable evening. I think everyone has enjoyed it. There's a few who've obviously got a wee bit tired. We've warmed them out. But thank you so much for putting all that effort into putting that together for us. And it's it's a lovely format to just meet people and really enjoy the wonders of meeting our type needs and chatting about something that we're all fascinated in. So all these opportunities are great, and maybe our interest group will be half online and half in person next year. That might be a good way to go. So
a bad idea, actually.
So many thanks for your energies and your thoughts, and I hope we all sleep well tonight without our inner wolves attacking us.